Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. 5-year-old shot and killed in Duane Park, St. Andrew. James police intensify operations to prevent reprisals following Wednesday's triple killing. And later in sports, reggae poised to face the United States in the World Cup qualifiers in less than 7. I'm O'Shane Masters. Here are the news in details. A 5-year-old girl was shot and killed in the community of New Haven in Duane Park, St. Andrew this morning. She has been identified as Danique Salmon. The incident happened sometime after 1 o'clock on Riverside Drive. It's understood that gunmen were trading bullets when the house with the child was hit. The little girl was shot in the head. Her mother, Kiri Ambersley, spoke with a reporter Kirkwright earlier this morning.
About 1 o'clock, there was some shooting outside. After the shooting, I get flat. My older daughter called me and said, Mommy, look and then. When I look, I see blood coming out my baby mouth. Her eyes pulping, so I call 119. After calling 119, they responded. Honestly, they responded quick. They grabbed my child, rushed her to a children's hospital, which she was already gasping her last breath. So they pronounced her dead at 1:45.
About how many gunshots you heard?
A lot.
What was it like? Describe it for me.
It was like Christmas when they burst in a lot of clappers.
Commanding officer for the St. Andrew South Police Division, Superintendent Kirk Ricketts, says the police are already making progress in their probe.
We have identified a number of the individuals we believe were involved this morning, and as we speak, operations have been launched to interdict and to locate them. We have been getting support, and because any incident like this, you can feel that the community members they have been severely affected. They themselves have expressed outrage, and they're tired of this sort of activities by these criminal suspects.
The St. James Police are carrying out operations in the Gully area and Glendavon community in search of a gunman behind yesterday's deadly attack in downtown Montego Bay. A senior investigator told our news center that the cops are focusing on these areas in search of the suspects and to prevent reprisal attacks. 10 people were shot when gunmen carried out an attack at the intersection of McCarthy Street and Hart Street in downtown Montego Bay, St. James on Wednesday. 3 of them died. Among the injured was a 10-year-old girl and 6 other persons who were in the vicinity. The girl who was shot in the head is said to be in serious condition. Sandy Williams tells us how it all unfolded.
It was reported that about 2:15 p.m., gunmen traveling in a Toyota Corolla opened fire on 4 men and a woman in a Toyota Mark X. The Mark X collided with a taxi and then crashed into a supermarket. 3 of the men traveling in the Mark X were killed, including a man who tried to run from the vehicle. He was chased and shot dead by the gunmen. He's been identified as 27-year-old Leon Brown. The other victims are 20-year-old Rashard Watson, otherwise called Blackman, and 18-year-old Robert Headley, otherwise called 1010. They were shot multiple times, with Headley receiving injuries to the head and upper body. The other passengers in the Mark X, a woman and another man, were taken to hospital where they were admitted. They are said to be in stable condition. Their attackers in the Toyota Corolla fled. Head of the Area 1 headquarters, Assistant Commissioner Clifford Chambers, told our news center that the gunmen are members of a Montego Bay-based gang.
And their rival are known. The area in which these gangs operate has been under intense joint security operation since the start of the year. And what happened is that they seized the opportunity to attack each other outside of the areas that they operate in. Whilst it's early days yet, the quick response of the police led to an illegal firearm being recovered. And as it is now, the police are maintaining an active presence in the hotspots occupied by these gangsters.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, the business community in St. James has reacted to yesterday's shooting incident with calls for tougher measures to deal with crime. A brazen daylight shooting in Montego Bay, St. James on Wednesday, which has left a 10-year-old battling for life, is now causing serious concern for the business community. Commercial activities were disrupted as it all unfolded.
It was a sight that I could not deal with as a mother. It was a sight that had a serious impact on my psyche for the entire evening.
First Vice President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Oral Heaven, is again calling for the Andrew Holness-led administration to implement tougher measures to deal with crime.
I think where we are falling short is where the law should be so obvious that when these criminals are caught, they are dealt with to the greatest extent possible. But it becomes a deterrent for them to carry out this brazen shooting in the middle of a busy weekday.
In the meantime, the shooting has renewed calls for the government to speed up the Jamaica Eye initiative in hotspots across the island.
They need to roll out Jamaica Eye, the CCTV system, because if that had been properly deployed in total, then you'll be able to identify the shooters, and that evidence is admissible in court. And it would give the police great assistance in conviction.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The Police Federation is fuming over the decision by the National Security Ministry to use private sector security guards to provide close protection services. The chairman of the federation says that move is not wise, as the Jamaica Constabulary Force will still have a major role to play. A battle is brewing between the Police Federation and the government. It comes following an announcement in Parliament on Wednesday by National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang. Dr. Chang said the National Security Ministry is moving to use private security companies to provide close protection services to some public officials in a bid to free up police personnel for frontline duties.
The threats against public officials in Jamaica is very low. The government, despite the high incidence of crime and violence. The government is, however, mindful of the ever-evolving criminal landscape and the fact that duties carried out by some officers are critical to ensuring continuity of the people's business and the smooth operation of the country, and in fact can become, in the evolving situation, threats could emerge. We cannot continue to depend on a haphazard system of assigning police officers to carry out functions that sometimes be better suited for an adjutant. In most cases, we need as many police officers as possible on the front line of crime fighting.
Dr. Chang told the House of Representatives Wednesday afternoon that up to December 2020, 515 police officers were assigned to the Protective Services Division. 300 officers were assigned to provide close protection support for public officials. Dr. Chang said this is untenable and police personnel should be focused on crime fighting. However, it's not going down well with Chairman of the Police Federation, Corporal Rowan James. He believes the announcement is a distraction from the real picture.
It is time for the piecemeal approach that is being taken towards the members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force to be resolved once and for all. It cannot be that every time an issue to resolve benefits and emoluments comes up, the government shifts its focus.
He says the move will also be taxing on the JCF, as the police will have to carry out the background checks on the designated private securities. He also noted that the cost for private security will be significantly more.
Here it is that it now raises a myriad of questions. Since it is that the government is speaking about the inability to compensate the rank and file members, how is it that you are going to find the resources to finance private security? How is it that you are going to do that? Tell the country. It is time we stop skirting around the bush with national security. It is too long that our employers have taken us for granted. Those days are over and done with. It is full time they come to the table and sit with us so that we can flesh the issues out.
Speaker of the House of Representatives and Member of Parliament for South Trelawney, Marissa Dalrymple Philibert, is to return to court on December 8. Mrs. Philibert, her son Giovanni Philibert, and her gardener, Simon Sanchez, are charged with littering in a public place. When the matter was called up in the St. Anne Parish Court this morning, the prosecution asked the investigating officer to submit another statement. It's reported that about August 15, Mrs. Philibert and her co-accused drove by a section of a road in the Landover area of St. Anne and disposed of some items. They were approached by police officers who informed them that they were in breach of the anti-litter law. Mrs. Philibert introduced herself to the officers and offered to pick up the trash. They were, however, taken to the Runaway Bay police station, processed and charged. The country's COVID-19 death toll continues to climb as 21 more people have died from the virus. The deaths occurred between September 2 and October 4. The death toll now stands at 1,964. According to the Ministry of Health, 2 deaths are under investigation. 460 people are hospitalized with the respiratory illness. 38 patients are critically ill, while 65 are severely ill. 130 additional people have recovered from COVID-19, increasing the overall recovery rate to 53,790. There are 29,132 active cases on the island. Meanwhile, for a second consecutive day, Jamaica's positivity rate is below the 20% mark. On Wednesday, the positivity rate stood at 17.7%. 214 new cases of COVID-19 were reported in the last 24 hours. The overall case count is 85,475. Less than 50% of persons in Latin America and the Caribbean have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and Jamaica, Nicaragua, and Haiti have still not yet reached even 10% coverage. That revelation from the Pan American Health Authority, PAHO. Shabala Pullen reports.
Speaking at the latest media briefing on Wednesday, Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Carissa Etienne, says 37% of people in Latin America and the Caribbean have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
As 7 countries and territories in the Americas have vaccinated more than 70% of their populations, just as many have yet to vaccinate 20% of their populations. Jamaica, Nicaragua, and Haiti have yet to reach even 10% coverage. We must focus our attention to close this gap as quickly as possible.
In just the past week, 875,000 vaccine doses arrived in countries across Latin America and the Caribbean. But Dr. Etienne says this is not enough to protect everyone.
So we continue to urge countries with surplus doses to share theirs with countries in our region where they can have life-saving impact. Let me assure you that PAHO is doing everything it can to accelerate vaccinations in the Americas, from delivering COVAX doses to supporting donations to purchasing vaccines on behalf of our region and establishing a platform to ramp up vaccine manufacturing in our region.
She also said that PAHO has already closed agreements with 3 authorized producers, Sinovac, Sinopharm, and AstraZeneca, an important step in getting vaccines to people.
We are now in conversation with our member states that want to use this alternative for direct purchasing through the revolving fund. We now have vaccines from Sinovac and AstraZeneca available this year, and also from the 3 producers to 2022. Whether it's getting vaccines to our region or tracking the spread of variants, controlling this pandemic rests on the work and support of partners across our region and indeed the world.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute. Legislative changes needed for the issuing of the Bank of Jamaica's Central Bank Digital Currency CBDC has been approved by Cabinet. Information Minister Fable Williams gave an update at Wednesday's post-Cabinet press briefing.
Cabinet also gave approval to amend the Bank of Jamaica Act to facilitate the issuance of central bank digital currency by the Bank of Jamaica and for the bank to be the sole authority to issue central bank digital currency. Digital innovation has led to the birth of alternative payment instruments, prompting central banks across the world to embark on exploratory projects to study the potential for issuing a central bank-backed digital currency.
National Commercial Bank became the first financial institution to participate in the CBDC pilot, which is currently underway. The Broadcasting Commission saw a reduction in earnings from license fees for subscriber television during its 2020-2021 financial year. The media regulator's annual report, which was tabled on Tuesday, showed a 3% decrease in revenue amounting to $332 million. That was down from $344 million in the prior year. The Commission recorded a $94 million financial surplus compared to $107 million during the 2019-2020 financial year. And that's it for the Business Minute. And it's now time for the top regional and international stories. Here's Sandy Williams.
In the region, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has appealed to teachers to continue to deliver online classes even as their union voted to withdraw services. In his weekly show on the state-owned NBC Radio, Dr. Gonsalves expressed disappointment at the decision. The government has classified teachers as frontline workers, meaning if they want to continue in their post, they will have to take a COVID-19 vaccine unless they receive a medical exemption. But in a statement, the St. Vincent Teachers Union said at a virtual meeting on Monday, the green light was given to the union to file an injunction against the government on the vaccination issue. The meeting also voted to refrain from online teaching Wednesday as well as next Monday and October 14. Students were scheduled to return to the physical classroom on Monday for the first time since December 2020. Further afield, a review by a group of independent scientists has cast serious doubt on a body of research that claimed ivermectin can be used to fight COVID and prevent deaths. The BBC revealed that more than a third of the 26 major trials of the drug for use on COVID have serious errors or signs of potential fraud. Dr. Kyle Sheldrick, one of the scientists investigating the studies, said they had not found a single clinical trial claiming to show that ivermectin prevented COVID deaths that did not contain either obvious signs of fabrication or errors so critical they invalidate the study. And that's it for the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
Thanks, Sandy. Now we head to a quick break. When you come back, we'll have your Midday Sports report. Simon Preston is standing by.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Reggae Boys captain Andre Blake says the Jamaicans are hoping to execute a disciplined performance as they face the United States in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers in Austin, Texas this evening.
The Americans have not lost to a Caribbean team at home in a World Cup qualifier since 1969. Captain of the Reggae Boys, Andre Blake, says for any chance of the boys to end that streak, they will need to be solid at the back.
If we can defend well, because it's their home, they're expected to win, so they're going to come. If we can defend well and the longer it goes 0-0, they're going to have to open up and take more risk, and we can definitely catch them on the corner. Not that we're going to play defense against attack in the game, but, if you don't concede a goal, you can't get scored on. So if we can be very disciplined defensively, and then that can transition into our attack. So just don't concede any goals, and know that we're always very close to getting one goal. And if you don't concede a goal, you only need one to win the game. And if you don't score and you don't give up a goal, then you get a point, which is okay on the road.
Head coach of the United States, Greg Berhalter, says the Americans will not be taking the Jamaicans lightly.
It's going to be far from that. They pushed Mexico to the absolute limit in Mexico City at altitude. Mexico scoring close to injury time in that game to get the winner. And it's a difficult team to break down. So, the way we're preparing for this game, Grant, and you've heard a lot of our guys say the same thing, is, our focus right now is on this first game, and that's it.
The last time Jamaica defeated the Americans was in June 2019 in a 1-0 victory. Shamar Nicholson scored the goal in that game. The United States are third in the octagon on 5 points. Kickoff is at 6:30 Jamaica time.
Meanwhile, group leaders Mexico will host Canada at the Azteca Stadium in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. Kickoff is at 8:40. At 7:05, Honduras will battle Costa Rica, while at 9:05, El Salvador will entertain Panama. Across the Atlantic we go now as defending champions France will face Belgium in semi-final 2 of the UEFA Nations League this afternoon in Turin. Kickoff is at 1:45 Jamaica time. The winner will join Spain in the final on Sunday. Spain defeated European champions Italy 2-1 in semi-final 1 on Wednesday. The loser of semi-final 2 will face Italy in the third place playoff also on Sunday. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Ashane, it is over to you.
Thanks, Simon. And that's the Midday News. I'm Ashane Masters. Join us at 7 for primetime news. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.